But I've learned that us neurotypical people are the people who really need to learn from neurodiverse individuals. We are the aliens of this planet, and neurodiverse individuals are the true heirs to this life. And what I mean by that is we battle every single day to be the best that we could possibly be as people. We fight for love. We fight for acceptance. We fight to be transparent and intentional in all of our ways. Whereas though autistic individuals, that's what they live by. That's what they do every single day without it being hard. But most importantly, they love the most.
Were you too young to know you were a girl or a boy?
Oh, I hated the skin that I was in. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was unlovable. I couldn't leave my house without people staring at me or making rude remarks.
There is a sense, I think, or a message that many of us have received that it's okay to be a Jew as long as you're the right kind of Jew.
Just imagine what it would be like for you when you get out of prison after, 10 years in there for something you didn't do.
Approximately 6 or 7 policemen attacked me and put in my pocket a big quantity of drugs.
If we can choose how we live well, then do we not have the right to choose how we die well? And how do we do that with dignity?
There's never a moment where I am not in pain. It's exhausting. This bottom line is what it is.
I was born with a congenital indifference. My arm, I have my elbow, but it was like underdeveloped from here out.
54% of those with disabilities are not working. If you're an employer, hire somebody with a disability. You won't regret it.
I've learned that us neurotypical people are the people who really need to learn from neurodiverse individuals. We are the aliens of this planet.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season will inspire you to empathize with people who are regularly marginalized and misunderstood. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show. So today on Purposeful Empathy, we're going to step into a deeply personal conversation with Jamiel Owens, a father whose life challenges so many stereotypes that we hold about neurodiversity and masculinity and what it means to really show up for our kids. As the proud father of a teenage son on the autism spectrum, Jamiel serves as the Family Relations Coordinator at the Center for Autism Research at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And he's also the founder of the Autism Fathers Conference. Together, we're going to talk about what it means to parent an autistic child, as well as the emotional labor that fathers often carry in silence. With incredible vulnerability, we're going to talk about fear, shame, rupture, and repair, and how empathy, not perfection, is what families truly need. This conversation is about the power, the radical power of staying present, even when you're feeling scared or uncertain or unprepared. So, if you're a parent whose life is touched by autism, neurodiversity, or disability, this episode is for you. So welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Anita, for allowing me to come on here and bless your subscribers and your audience. I really appreciate that. Hang tight. It's going to get emotional, so make sure you stay in tune with us.
I love that. And I know that to be true, even though this is only the second time we're connecting. We met at Empathy Tech. Yep. A conference that is really there to uplift communities that are often marginalized through technology. And I happen to be in the green room as a speaker, eavesdropping on a Zoom call where you were doing some education piece, and immediately, like maybe I gave you 30 seconds to breathe after you hit close, and then I'm like, can I invite you onto my podcast? So yeah. Thank you for doing the work that you do and saying yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I listen, it wasn't by mistake. We talk about that all the time. So I'm happy you got to hear a little bit about my crazy life and my perspective. But I'm happy to be here. Let's talk shop. Let's get
Okay.
to it.
Okay, so I've read your bio and we're going to dig into all of that. But to give us a sense of who you are as a human being first, you had even said to me, Anita, what you heard on that call was like a drop in the bucket. So I wonder if you might give us a little glimpse into who you were as a child, teen, young man, adult. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself to fill in the blanks.
Wow. So it's a lot to unpack, but I'll try my best not to run on. Early childhood, I was born with a physical disability myself. I have a medical condition called an AV fistula on my right leg, which is the absence of the main vein in my right leg that helps circulate blood to my feet all the way up to my head, and so forth. The doctors made a life-saving decision and used one of the smallest veins in my right leg and put a port in there to maintain circulation throughout my body. So that is the only reason why I am here today. Born in a single parent home. My mother had me when she was 17, very young. So it was a child raising a child, and just really trying to navigate, being a special needs mom to a young man that was being brought up in the 80s. So a lot of love was showered on me, but I was missing that firmness, that strength per se, and nothing bad against mothers, but I missed that connection with a father, a male role model. Because I didn't have that, and my mom was just trying to maintain and trying to help raise me, and then later on my little brother, because I, of course, only children only one. We always ask for a sibling because we're bored, and don't do that. Just be the only child is better. But I asked for that, and she just tried to navigate life and find love. But what happened with me, and I talk about this when I present a lot of times, is I sort of dove into just really pushing forward academically, because I felt I was inferior to everybody else. So a form of version per se of imposter syndrome, where I didn't feel I was good enough for any of the accolades because of my physical appearance, my leg, because of the absenteeism of my dad. So I put my efforts and everything in academically, and many people who are probably listening to this know the result of that. You're never satisfied. So that's a little bit of glimpse into my early childhood, but I want to bridge it to the early adolescence. Unfortunately, throughout the years of stress and neglect and trying to find love and people, my mom, she had an undiagnosed psychosis episode of schizophrenia and depression. At the time, I remember this because it was my 14th, 15th birthday. She kicked me out of the house because her psychosis would not allow for her to believe that I was her son. So literally from that age, 15, 16, I've been on my own. And that was required of me to sleep on, porches and couches. And that was really an internal thing because I didn't voice what was going on at home to any of my friends or at the time school counselors. So I really took on the brunt of growing up too fast, what it is to be a man in a young man's in a boy's body. So I don't want to speak too much, but that's a lot of the concept of me in the early childhood and navigating the streets and trying to find out who I am without proper direction. Kind of segue into where I'm at today, but it's a little bit more story. So I don't want to talk. I know we got a lot of different questions to kind of build up here, but that's my early childhood. I wouldn't call it tragic, and I don't want anybody to really feel sorry for me, because I believe we all have journeys, and this life is not made to be simple. It's what we do in that journey and with what we've learned through life, because all of these were lessons for me. I didn't think of it at that time because I thought of it and I seen it as pain. But it was lessons to kind of condition me to who I am today.
Yeah, that does provide a lot of context. I wonder, as a quick follow-up, have you reconciled with your mom?
She unfortunately, she was on the streets for a number of years, and when I found her, she only had 3 months to live because of stage 4 cancer. So back in 2014, she actually passed away.
Yes. But you had the chance to at least spend some time with her, maybe?
Every day when I found her, and they told me 3 months, I let my job know, hey, I'm gonna be gone 3 months. This is it. And I spent every day with her, from the place that she was at, the hospital, to hospice. I was there every single day, down to the very last day she took her last breath.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
So, okay, I believe service is important to you. I wonder if you might share what happened beyond that in your life that made you want to serve others.
Can't really explain why in my life, going through so many different things, why I felt servitude was my lane, like what I wanted to do. What I will share is that having my oldest son, Shane, um, you know, and him being diagnosed with autism at age 3, opened my eyes to a population of people that needed, validity, that needed to be recognized, but also too needed to be loved. And I contribute everything that I do today, being a volunteer firefighter for 5 years, to being in this advocacy space and doing everything in it, to my son Shane. And the reason why, the root of it, is because Shane single-handedly removed all of the callousness and the hardness that my heart manifested throughout the years. The things that would say, I'm supposed to hate you, Anita, because maybe you have more opportunities than me, or you didn't succumb to the pain that I did. But Shane's love allowed for me to soften my heart and build a connection with people such as yourself, such as everybody, and say, I don't want to blame you, but I want to learn from you. So tell me about yourself. Tell me who you are. Tell me what your experiences may be, and how I can learn off of that. Tell you about what I do and build a community based off that. And that was literally because of Shane.
Wow, Shane, the gift of life.
The gift of life.
Okay, before we go down the Shane road, which I'm excited to, anyways, I'm very excited about this conversation. I'm going to learn a lot. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
our listeners and viewers are going to learn a lot. And I think people who might have a child or a nephew or a niece on the spectrum will also learn a lot. So stay
Yes.
tuned. Between the 14, 15-year-old couch serving Jay,
Hmm.
who felt pressure to perform academically and that was never enough,
Hmm.
and the birth of your son, there's still a period of time.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could share a little bit of that period as well.
That is what I like to call the wilderness. So that was me really trying to find out who I want to pretend to be as a male. So I was still trying to be an adolescent and live that life because I didn't have an opportunity to. It was cut short. But really trying to, you know, do anything that I felt like was the correct or positive way for my life, even though I didn't know any better. But I was also working on, um, the pain and how to move past the pain. So psychologically, I did everything with the pain that I did in my life. I just pushed it to the side and overachieved for myself because watching TV and seeing, music videos and just reading things and materializing things, I seemed to be, I wanted to be the alpha male. And in order to be the alpha male, I have to push pain to the side and go for what I wanted. So I excelled I went to school. Unfortunately, I dropped out of school because of those issues. I went to one of the best high schools in Philadelphia, Central High School, 259 in the building. That's one thing that kind of hurts because I dropped out in 11th grade. I only had 1 year left, and I would have graduated. But I got my GED, and from that, I just worked. I'm talking about 4 or 5 jobs all at one time because I understood what society said a man should be, and that's a provider. Okay, great. So I'm a provide. I'm young. I can handle it. So I was working around the clock in order to maintain myself. Oh, I didn't mention that, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but being able to provide for myself was the main goal, trying to be flashy, trying to make it seem like I have it all together, when really, once again, I was just a boy in a man's body trying to navigate childhood in the circumstances that I was in right now. Um, and through that, I met Shane's mother, who happened to went to Central and seen me philandering around the hallways because I was in my own mind about things that were going on at home and being a little rebellious about it. So we talked, and we got together. A number of years, had a relationship, and ultimately we got married, and then came along Shane. So kind of scoop it up a little bit for you.
So then came along Shane. Now, I understand that 1 in 31, so like roughly about 3% of children aged 8 years old, have been diagnosed or identified on the spectrum. Okay, so let me start with just a little piece of education. So, what do you think are some misconceptions about autism that you wish more people understood? Let's debunk some myths. Like, what is autism and what are the myths around it?
Well, I can only talk because I'm not a clinician, so I can only give you a perspective from a father's, just raising an autistic child. One of the biggest ones that I would like to talk about, Shane is verbal or speaking, as members in the community will talk about, but those who are non-speaking or non-verbal, a term that is used in the community, doesn't mean that they don't feel, doesn't mean that they don't listen, doesn't mean that they don't understand. They are literally ingesting everything in our world from hearing. And even though the communication is not the same way, they are listening to you. So I urge people to understand that what you say around a nonverbal or non-speaking autistic is very important. As neurotypical people, love affirmations, and we love to feed and pour into each other. So do autistic individuals. They need that, they want that, and they deserve that. So that's one myth that I could talk about. The second myth is that your child is going to be everything that you did not expect for them to be, which means that from our feeble minds as neurotypical individuals, we have a systematic way of seeing our children. Oh, he's going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, things like that. They are going to surpass what you think your child should be, and they're going to be successful within their own lives, which means they're going to forever be happy because they're not going to attain to societal rules on how to make other people idolize them or big them up from what they're doing on this planet. So that's another thing. Shane is about to graduate, and he is going to be successful, and he is going to be great at what he sees fit. And I had to learn to remove what I thought was good for him in order for him to be successful in the future. So that's the second thing.
I'm picking up on huge humility vibes. Okay, so
yes,
but
yes.
That sounds like it was a bit of a process. So let's take us
Yeah.
back to Jay,
Okay.
who's like working 4 or 5 jobs, hustling, trying to be a man, be a provider. I can do that. You're also sort of squishing out the pain that you may have been suppressing, while conquering the world. You get married and you have Shane. Can you take us back to those days where Shane is a young boy, he's a toddler, and what you're noticing?
Yeah. So I mean, that time I was not I was not the greatest partner because all of the baggage that I had earlier in my life, now I'm bringing it into the marriage. I had a child I had Shane, which being in the delivery room, actually seeing Shane was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever been able to be a part of. Um, but I was scared, and I was very, uh, I was very fearful about being a father. I didn't have that role model. My father wasn't around. I didn't know what that looked like. Um, but I figured, hey, it can't be that difficult because I see, people around me. I see it on television. Once again, I'm learning from everybody else. I don't have anybody in my ear navigating the right and wrongs. Um, so, Shane arrives, and he's a beautiful young man. And, all of his milestones weren't noticed by me or his mom because, once again, this is our first child. And then on top of that, we're dealing with stuff internally between me and her. So it's kind of almost saying, and respect to his mother, is not her fault, that we were missing certain things or certain cues in the beginning, characteristics, to show like, hey, you know what, we should be talking to the doctor about what we're actually seeing. But I could speak on a story if you want to. The actual moment that I realized that something was going on, um, real quick. Me and his mother was working. My wife at the time was working two separate jobs. We were passing by. She was working day. I was working night. I came home. Was very tired. Once again, I remember what I said. I wasn't good. I was trash. I was a trash father. We had this huge playpen in the living room. Couch was right next to it. I put Shane in the couch in the playpen. I was on the couch. I fell out for like an hour. Woke up. Shane was still there. He was good. He was playing around. I said, okay. Picked him up. He immediately went to our sun porch. On the sun porch, he loved Thomas the trains at that time. He took the trains, lined them up to the very exact edge of the radiator cover, and he started going back and forth with his eyes stimming. But he was doing it at a rapid speed that I've never seen before. Something that, unfortunately, with a lack of better terms, I would use as possessed. Like it was because I've never seen this before. And at that moment, the fear came out of me, the cowardness and the fear, because I pushed Shane down. And I didn't just I pushed him down very, very, violently to get him to stop doing it. All of his trains fell. He looked at me. He was hurt. Dad, how can you do this? And he started to have a meltdown. And I started to remove myself from that sun porch, and I sat on the couch and I started to cry. And that's when I knew something was going on. I was a first father, but I knew something was going on. I conferred with his mother later on that evening, and then she started to admitting. So we put all our differences on the side, and she started to admit that she was noticing some things too. And that's when we decided to take him to receive an evaluation. And Shane was diagnosed at the age of 3 in 2011 with level 1 or Asperger's, high functioning autism back in that day.
I have goosebumps under my sweater. That's a very powerful story. I can imagine the visual. I can imagine your son. I can imagine you on this couch. I can imagine you having a conversation with your then partner. So you got the diagnosis, and I suppose there's a degree of there's a few kind of factor to know that it's something, right? That you couldn't put your fingers on. But I'm imagining that it's also like it opens up a whole Pandora's box around other emotions, fears, maybe, I don't know, you probably have aspirations and hopes for your kid, and then somehow that gets a little bit mucked up. I just wonder what were all the feels that you had around that diagnosis initially? Just to normalize it a bit.
So I'm gonna be as transparent as possible because that's what I do. You heard it in my presentation. On the drive over there, I didn't want to be in this family anymore. I was literally plotting my out per se, to remove myself from this family because deep down in my heart, I knew the results were going to be that there's something going on with Shane. I didn't know exactly what it was. And you got to remember, this thought process is coming from someone who was a special needs child. But once again, everything in my life was pointing me to having a perfect life, and this wasn't involved with it. So we're driving over there. I'm like, I want to leave. I want out of this family, regardless of what the outcome would be. I know something's going on. So we you know, it wasn't even fear anymore. It was just like, okay, I need to get out of this because this doesn't serve me. We received a diagnosis. I was as stonewall as any person can possibly be in any type of doctor's office. I didn't say anything. I didn't even look at the provider. I didn't look at my wife at the time, Shane's mother. I didn't even look at Shane. Took the information. And then when I got into the car, I started to become angry because I started to question, okay, God, why did you do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? How can I get out of this? I don't want this. So I dropped my wife at the time, his mother, and Shane off at home when I should actually been consoling my wife, telling her this is not your fault. We're going to get through this. And really relearning my new son, because I feel my perspective, when you get a diagnosis, you have a new child now. Now you have to learn something different. And I went out partying that night and got completely drunk, Anita. And I sat there the next day, and within the next 2 weeks, I was out of his house for 4 years after that.
Hmm.
I told you we're going to get real. we're going to get real.
And so, I mean, knowing who you are now and looking back on those decisions, those 4 years, what were some of the thoughts, or were you repressing those thoughts too in those 4 years? Like, what was happening before a big decision was made to turn a corner?
I was looking to start over. I was really inclined to start over. So I had a pull to Shane because I'm like, it was subtle thoughts that would come into my mind and like, dude, you're doing the same thing your dad did. Why are you doing this? Your child doesn't deserve this. And I was just set on starting over, having that perfect life, that perfect wife, the perfect child, being the alpha male, living life on my terms. And the only reason why I kind of, recluded back from that mind frame was his mother called me because I didn't know where they were either. And she called me and said, I need you to come over here and see your son because your son just called the trash man daddy.
Mm.
And when I heard that, my heart stopped because I literally did everything that my father has done to me.
Mm.
I didn't stop it. And I want to stop and say, shout out to my dad. He's been in my life. That's another part of my story. He's intentional and he is here. And the deal that we had was, I don't want to worry about the past. All of that is gone. Just be here now. And he's been there. He has a great relationship with both of my children and myself and my wife. So he has really stepped up. So, but I also wanted to tell you where that started from. So.
And did you repair with your dad before you got repaired with your own son, or that happened after?
That happened like a little bit afterwards because my father actually, we have a cousin. I have a cousin that works for the city of Philadelphia. She works for the city, and she actually located me for my dad. And I remember that phone call, and he said, I'm your dad. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, whatever. I got to go to work. So make this quick. Like I literally said that to him. And he's like, listen, I am your dad. And he started explaining some things. And he was like, I'm just asking you right now, if you want me in your life, that's fine. But if you don't, it's okay. And I had a second, but when I tell you, Anita, I didn't even need a second. Immediately, I was like, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. I don't even want to know the reason why you left. But if you really want to be here, you have to be here from now on. And I have to introduce you to your grandson. And I'll tell you about him when you meet him. And he said, okay. And we've been good ever since.
Wow, that is a powerful, powerful story. And what's really kind of cool about that is that you stepped up as a father and were rewarded with a father who stepped up for you.
I often say God's a jokester because in that time, my mother was still on the streets and homeless. I didn't even know where my mom was at. So I had the removal of one parent, and then God gave me the other parent that I needed.
Mm.
Hey, Your mom, she loved you. She knows what love is. She showed you what love is. Now I need to take her out. Now I need to show you what really being a man is about. And that's going to be a harder journey. So I always say that, there was a transpire of power, of lessons that was learned, and I'm thankful for it.
So you made the decision that you did, and then you made the decision to come back and be present with your son. But what do you wish someone had told you on the heels of that diagnosis? Yeah.
I think one of the biggest there's two main things, if I could. The first thing is, before you invite someone into your world, meaning you have a partner or you get married, take care of your stuff first. If you know you are dealing with a lot of trauma mentally, emotionally, physically, work on yourself first, because you're going to do nothing but damage and destroy that person's life. You're going to be a consumer versus a contributor. The second thing is, whatever, as a man, whatever you see in the world as being superior, you have to remember that there's nothing on this planet, or nobody on this planet is perfect. There is a superior power, depending on what religion you believe in, and you have to really invest in that mindset before you discard, you leave, you vacate any position of authority within your household. Meaning, before you leave that house, you need to pray about that, because all of us here, we can give you our perspectives, because our perspectives are jaded. We mean well, but our perspectives are jaded. You can do better. You can find better. You can do this. In some cases, that is true. But I think when you go to a higher power, well, not think, I know, when you go to a higher power and your accountability comes from that, you start to realize that we are all imperfect, that we have all been given second chances, and you need to give that in order to heal and to be better yourself. I've been given plenty of second chances.
So
And yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Jay.
No, 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 no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So it sounds like faith is a big part of your journey. But so, speaking to a man,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
what other strategies did you deploy, or what do you continue to do that actually helps you evolve as a human, heal old wounds, let go of old, negative self-talk, to put you in a better mindset to be, you know, yeah.
Servitude, just being willing to serve other people, learning from other men of other ethnic backgrounds, and financial, economic statuses, really being willing to welcome in everybody into my life, and learning about theirs too. Really understanding that pride and ego is a thing that us men, we battle with every single day, and that is the one thing that is going to kill us tremendously. So I look to share with other men my story and hear about their story, and kind of build a community with them. Um, just really showing them, like, you could be macho, you could be, that alpha male material, without being too chauvinistic or being too prideful or egotistical. You can still be that's the strongest man seen in your community, and especially in your home, and to your wife as well, and to your children. It just takes a rewiring of the heart and the mind as well.
So you came back into your son's life when he was about 7, right? By my math, yeah.
Yeah, around like 6, 7. Yeah,
And
yeah.
now he's a teenager, right? He's
Adolescence, going into pretty much that earlier stages of, now he understands. Like, now it's not, no, you could just look at him and tell him stuff, but now you're going to get emotional questions given to you. Yeah.
So what have you learned about children on the spectrum? So he's autistic, not he has Asperger's, right? So high functioning Asperger's. So what have you learned about this condition. Is it called a condition? I don't even know.
It is called a condition. I mean, those in the autism community, we don't like to say that. Me personally, nobody's perfect. I just see an autistic individual as a person first. So
Mm.
understanding, hey, first you have a name, and then I need to know who you are, and then comes the label after that. But it's characterized by science as a condition, yes.
Or maybe just somebody with neurodiversity. Maybe that's
There
a
you go.
broader
There you go.
brush. Yeah.
That there
Okay.
you
Let's
go.
let's
There you
use
go.
that as a frame. So what have you
Exactly.
learned?
I've learned that um, I've learned that us neurotypical people, and this is once again, this is my perspective. So don't think like I'm a scientist or anything. This is just a dad talking. But I've learned that us neurotypical people are the people who really need to learn from neurodiverse individuals. We are the aliens of this planet, and neurodiverse individuals are the true heirs to this life. And what I mean by that is we battle every single day to be the best that we could possibly be as people. We fight for love. We fight for acceptance. We fight to be transparent and intentional in all of our ways. Whereas though autistic individuals, that's what they live by. That's what they do every single day without it being hard. But most importantly, they love the most. I can go outside right now and feel a person walking up the block. They're looking kind of shaky. I'm not even going to say hello to them. I'm going to continue to look down and be on my way. Where though an autistic individual will look at you, some of them, some autistic individuals have problems looking at their eye, but they want an emotional connection with you. Hi, how are you? What's your name?
Mm.
Tell me about yourself. And we struggle with that every single day. That's my perspective. Sounds crazy, but that's my perspective.
So you probably witnessed your son do things that were a kind of revelatory to you, right? I wonder if you might share an anecdote or two that really demonstrates sort of like his unique way of seeing the world and navigating the world.
uh, um, First, Shane is in a school district. He's been in the same school district since elementary school. He is what we call mainstreamed. So he is in a school program with neurotypical peers, and he gets services throughout the day. Um, I remember one time going up to school, one of the first days of school, and I was dropping him off, and I made sure he was nice and just confident. And as we're walking by, kids who were his peers, his age and older, was like, "Hey, Shane, hey, what's going on? Hey, Shane, what's going on? See you later, Shane." And I was just amazed about how many people knew my son's name. Like how many people acknowledge Shane? Not, oh, well, there go the autistic kid Shane and his father, but people identify Shane and look forward to interacting with him during that day. That's my that's my one that I never forget that because it made me feel proud, but it also was a heart check to say you don't have to try to appeal to people's ideals of what's perfect or what's that plateau. You just have to be authentically you, and people are going to see that and gravitate towards you.
So his radical, I'm using words, maybe you have different words, but what I'm hearing, it sounds like his radical self-acceptance taught you radical self-acceptance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it got rid of that imposter syndrome thing that, today in society, a lot of people are actually going through. It got rid of that. I don't need that anymore. Why? And I think back to earlier in my life, and I'm like, it was completely stupid, for lack of better terms, for me to even think that that was a way of living. But unfortunately, when that's all you see or all that you want to see,
Mm.
that's what happens.
So you mentioned school. So let's talk about, what it means to navigate as a family overwhelming systems. So you've got the assessments, therapies, school supports. Like what advice do you have for parents who feel lost or discouraged in that whole mess of stuff?
I always encourage accountability on both sides. So sitting at the table with the IEP team and really being transparent with them. A lot of times we hear in papers, we hear through the grapevine that a lot of parents are facing adversity challenges with the school system. And you have to remember this is that one, this is probably a teacher that is given limited resources to be able to help your child and all the other child that's just like them. So I want to use one term that's been given to me and everybody that's listening to this, and that's grace. So when you give grace, you start to think about the other side, and you're like, okay, instead of me cursing at you, and sometimes in some cases that is so. You need to stand your ground. But also in some earlier instances, some cases, you can sit down with them and be like, okay, what can we do to promote continuous care, not only in school, but also in home, that ensures that my loved one, my son, my daughter, is going to flourish in your school system? How can I help you, teacher, be the best teacher that you can possibly be? What does that look like as far as me as a parent? And once again, I want to be respectful because there are some cases, unfortunately, where there's neglect and there's abuse. And at that time, the right course of action, yes, please take that as a parent and an advocate. But on those lighter sides, come in there with an open hand, open mindset, and just really engage with the teacher and say, what can I do on my end to ensure that you're doing the best that you possibly can do for my child?
So there's just the basic bit of advice is to work in partnership, right? Takes a village.
Partnership takes a village.
Got it. So you're very committed to the dads, right? And you want to uplift the fathers who might be struggling with things like shame and acceptance and uncertainty. So what typically stands in the way of dads seeking support, and how do you get them? What's the breakthrough? What's the
I mean, you name it in society is like one of the key things that we take as men, like, oh, well, they don't look like me, so they're not going to understand. Oh, well, they probably had an easier life than me, or I don't have time to worry about this right now because bills need to get paid. Or, hey, I'm chasing my career. I'm trying to do what I need to do to establish myself. I'm gonna let my wife take care of it, or someone else to take care of it. Those are the obstacles. When I run into men in my position, calls, because I get calls a lot of time. I counsel a lot of dads. I tell them my story first because I want them to understand, though we may be different, looks, age, uh, geographical location, we have a base foundation that is the same, and that is we have had hurt and we also have love for our children. So I start with my story and let them know exactly who they're talking to. And then normally what happens is that these men open up because they realize I'm not just another PhD with a jacket on that claims to know everything. No disrespect to anybody who has that accolade. Congratulations. But I'm a working class man who's been through the struggles, who's just still trying to navigate this life. And I want to share that with them. And they are very acceptance and open. And I think if we do that collectively, we will get more response from autism fathers.
Love that. Love that. So this is a podcast about empathy, and I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit. So, your work helps understand or widens our understanding of autism. How do you think we could cultivate greater empathy for autistic individuals and families, on a personal level and on a collective social level?
I think it starts by, if you are not in a lived experience or you have not befriended an autistic adult, you will never be able to show any type of empathy because you're from the outside looking in. So I encourage professionals, I encourage neurotypical families or individuals that don't have neurodiverse individuals in their family to learn about autism, to interact with different autistic individuals, because you want to keep in mind that there's different levels of autism: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 3 being our individuals, our loved ones with more severe needs. Some people refer to it also to as profound autism. Learn who they are as a person, learn their family, get to know them. I think that is the way that we cultivate empathy in this particular population and really start advocating from a place that's for these individuals versus what we think should be for these individuals.
I like that. And I also wonder if you might, maybe something comes to mind. There's debate in the scholarly research part of this that folks who are autistic may not have the same capacity for empathy. I wonder whether or not you could share moments from your own experience with Shane saying, no, that's not true.
You know, one story I have is when I was on my knees crying in my living room back in my old apartment. Shane was about maybe 40, 50 feet away in a room with the TV on. He couldn't have heard me crying because I was sobbing. I was quiet. You know how us men do. We try to like hold it down without being too emotional. And I remember just asking God, like, I can't do this anymore. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of turmoil once again, because I was in that wilderness stage. And Shane came out of nowhere and he just gave me a hug. Mm-hmm. And my tears turned from tears of pain to tears of joy because I've been given a tangible example of God's love in my life. Mm-hmm. I've been given a lesson, a book to actually learn how to decode everything that I thought I knew about manhood. Mm.
So the last question. Oh, it's been such a great and a very rich conversation.
Yes.
I know that some folks who are going to be watching and listening are going to feel touched, and we're going to include all sorts of information to get in touch with you and learn about your work in the show notes. So here we are at our last question, which I always ask my guests the same thing. And you've already just, almost answered the question, but I'm going to go for gold.
All right.
Can you think of a moment in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you?
Yeah. So this was recently, actually, this past weekend. I was doing an event in Philadelphia at a museum. I had my oldest Shane, who was diagnosed with autism, with me because I like to take him out to meet new people, introduce himself. Plus, I let him walk around the museum. He loves museums, right? I do too. And this family of two young boys, both of them autistic, mom and dad, were walking by. They walked at and stopped at another table, service provider. And then mom came over with one of the boys. And I want to respect the autonomy of this boy. So I'm just going to say M. So mom came over to the table. M was very rambunctious. He didn't want to stay still. But for some reason, M came around the table and tried not to cry. He sat on my lap. And mom was just like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay. And M hugged me and he started to play with my beard and he kissed me on my cheek. And when I tell you, he looked in my eyes, it made me feel like it gave me the answer for the past 2 or 3 weeks that I was looking for, because I was asking God, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And he looked at me like, I love you. Yes, because I need you to speak for people like me. And I will never forget that, because his mom was just shocked. She's like, she had to grab her husband and she's like, M is over there. And he came over and I introduced myself and I shook his hand and he's just like, wow, M made a new friend. And then me and his dad just started to talk and just conversate, just be two men in a space. And I remember he was like, all right, well, we got to go, M. And I remember, just like I do my son, I just kissed him on the head. And because in that moment, I felt him giving me the empathy, like, I need you. We need you. We need you to continue to speak for us but I also saw in his eyes forgiveness for everything I did in the past. So sorry. Oh man. Ah.
I often say that I love this question because I never know the story I'm going to hear, but inevitably the story is always touching because I think empathy is the second most powerful human trait. We have love. I mean, we can lift cars if we need to. That's how powerful love is, but not far behind is empathy. And it's innate to who we are. We just don't practice it enough in our culture. And that's a powerful story. This young boy, through his empathic action, allows you to feel forgiven and to carry the torch forward. And that's just a beautiful story.
Yeah. I'm recharged. I got my answer, and it came from a young man who does not communicate the same way as me, but told me a story with his eyes. I just needed to sit in that moment and listen. And I think us as fathers, sometimes we miss the blessing that we have, even though it looks like it's something to deter us. It's harmful. Our children are a blessing because it's meant to change our lives. And he continues to bless me with Shane, but I get an opportunity to be recharged by other individuals that I never knew in my life. It was great.
Well, Jay, I just want to say thank you for finding the hour in the busyness of late December when we're all kind of, rushing a mile a minute. Thank you
Yeah.
for the work you do, uplifting fathers and families. And I'm deeply moved. I'm deeply moved by your vulnerability and authenticity. And I'm grateful that you're sharing that with me today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I hope this helps and touches, a father that needs to hear it, a mother that's on her last leg looking for a divorce. Maybe just give you a perspective of maybe what that man is going through. And hopefully you guys can come to the table and talk and be there and be intentional together. So I hope all the things.
Oh, well, that's an invitation. If this show is touching, put a comment, let Jay know. And we'll thank you all for watching and listening. We'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
If you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them now. Post the link to your socials and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.